Welcome on to this edition of the Faster Beyond 50. My name is Brad Nanolt. We've got the coach with us once again, Lindsey Parry, and today we are going to be talking about the different types of long runs. We're going to be talking about running shoes for super wide feet. Something that I've never heard about, which I'm super interested to find out more about, is adaptive muscle shortening. We're going to talk about stretching instead of walk breaks and some feedback on our mobility exercises and how to make them work for you. Linz, nice to catch up once again. It's the first time we're chatting since you're back from the Berlin Marathon. Welcome back. Congrats on another marathon, but sometimes things don't always go according to plan.
No, and I got to say I've been lucky in my life that very few have not gone according to plan. And I did learn from Boston, so a very similar issue to what happened in Boston 2 or 3 years ago, to be honest. Almost like a compartment pressure buildup in my quads, which I've been battling with for a few months, but it seemed to have resolved itself as I got fitter and stronger. So I don't know, maybe the traveling, maybe the taper, who knows? But it was there from the second kilometer. But still, look, a wonderful event, truly wonderful event. Very nice people in Berlin, and a fascinating history. So all in all, a cracking weekend. But yeah, I can't say I really enjoyed the race, and it had nothing to do with the Berlin Marathon. I can highly recommend it to anybody who wants to do it. But the kind of cycle of walk, release the pressure, start running again, feel quite good. 10 minutes later, the pressure in the quad starts to build up. 15 minutes later, very difficult to run, need to walk. The release of, and it was just kind of, that was my cycle that I was rinsing through. And then in the sort of final third, it just got so hot. So then I was starting to walk, not even because of the sort of discomfort in the quads anymore. I was just walking more because every time I saw water, I was making my way over to it and dousing myself in water. But yeah, like I said, I still enjoyed it. I just didn't love it. Like I normally get like a real almost adrenaline rush, if you like, from running marathons. What I really enjoyed, Brad, was that we managed to have a couple of get-togethers of the Coach Parry crew that were there. And so we managed to have an amazing shakeout run on the Saturday, which was amazing to hang out and chat. And then afterwards, the one advantage of the heat was that this would never be repeated at another Berlin Marathon, is that we managed to find a really nice spot on the river. And we stayed there the whole afternoon. And as the Coach Parry crew were finishing, people were coming around, and we were able to just like catch up and see people in person, which we don't do a lot of. So all in all, it was a successful event. And I could have run a little, or I would have liked to run a little faster, but I couldn't run any faster on the day.
Yeah, and a major's a major, Linz. That's it. Another box ticked. So you're one closer to completing them all, which is cool. I'm running Cape Town Marathon in a week from now, as this gets published, and I've actually just got back from a run. It's been challenging, the build up, to say the least. So we've got a week to go, and for the last 4 weeks, I practically haven't run because I've got a calf strain. So slowly, sort of feeling how it's feeling. I'm on the fence whether I'm running or not. Managed to get through a run pain-free this morning. But let's see how we go. If you are coming out of Cape Town, don't forget we are going to have our famous pacing bands available. Unfortunately, the Cape Town Marathon don't want us at the expo, so we are setting up across the road in a coffee shop called Cafe Extra Blatt. So that's where we're going to be. So make sure, it's a few hundred meters from the expo. Come grab a coffee, come say how's it to the team. It should be good fun as well. But let's get into today's questions. And the first one, and don't forget, if you do have a question, by the way, you can submit them in the comments below this video or in the show notes of the podcast. You can click through a link. We do favor video questions, which we've got a couple coming up in this episode as well. We bump those to the top of the list, top of the queue. So if you do have a question you'd like answered, pop us a video and we'll get to it pretty quickly. The first one comes in from Hosenth, I think it is. It says, how many types of long runs are there? I only know of 2, long, slow distance and race pace long runs. For the race pace one, we usually run 30 kilometers at race pace. But if I'm training for a half marathon or even 5K, how should I be doing my long runs? What pace should I run at? And what should I look at instead of pace? And how long should my long run be if I'm preparing for a 5K?
So strictly speaking, Brad, there's only one kind of long run, and that's the long run. So long runs are meant to be very cruisy, easy affairs. And of course, the distance of that long run is normally relative to what you're training for. So if you are training for a really fast 5K, that long run could be anything between 75 and 90 minutes. Of course, when you start moving into the elite level, those long runs still get slightly longer than that at times still, but 75 to 90 minutes would be appropriate long run for a 5K. For a 10K, 90 minutes to an hour 45. For a half marathon, you're probably looking in the region of 25 kilometers, 15 miles, being typically long enough for that. And then for your marathon, your long run will be probably close to 20 miles, 32 kilometers. Some people like a 36K. But you wouldn't be repeating that long run over and over again. So typically for a marathon, you might cover that distance 2 to 3 times. And then, of course, there are other types of runs that can help you to prepare for races. So for a 5, 10K, you could possibly look at doing something like a 20 to 30 minute tempo, or 3 times 1K at tempo pace, which is probably in and around your race pace. A few seconds quicker, a few seconds slower, you're still going to get the same benefit out of that run. And then that kind of 30K race pace workout, probably my least favorite workout. And you should really only be doing workouts like that if you are very, very well conditioned. So the reality is that for, I'd say, at least 80%, probably 90% of the running population, that 30K run will pretty much just be your race. So you will leave your best possible result for race day. You'll leave at the door of that 30K hard run. It takes most people way too long to recover from that because we just simply don't have the conditioning required to be able to do that 30K training run. And the other thing, and Brad, you've heard me talk about this quite a lot when it comes to comrades and people, which is an ultra marathon for those listening, and this long run that people do. Now, 30Ks for you at marathon pace and 30Ks for me at marathon pace are not the same thing. People say, oh, no, but it's the same relative intensity. Yeah, it's the same relative intensity, but yours is an hour longer than mine. So we didn't do the same workout at all, actually. I did a 2-hour workout and you did a 3+ hour workout. So who's going to sustain more damage? Who's going to need more recovery time? So quite simply, there are workouts, of course, you can do to create some specificity. And so for people like me and you, if you really feel like you need to, I don't know, build your confidence up or feel what race pace feels like, because, for a lot of people, there's too much of a discrepancy between this very fast interval work and then this very slow long run work. So if you're really struggling with that, then I would recommend doing something like a 2 times 5K towards the end of your long run. Or at most like 1 hour at race effort at the end. And now again, just notice that I'm talking about time, because for the two of us to have a workout that we get the same benefit from, we must do it for the same amount of time. So I'm going to cover more kilometers than you are, but we're going to same relative intensity, same time, same amount of recovery time afterwards.
Yeah, Lindsey, because I just, when you talk about race pace, and especially when you start talking 5K versus marathon, that sort of thing, I mean, it's just interesting, the question. And I was just thinking as you were answering that, like, my 5K race pace is very different to my marathon race pace. So it's two totally different things. There's no ways. I mean, you're talking about a 70 to 90 minute long run for a 5K. There's no ways that I can run that long at my 5K race pace. For me, a 5K is like all out. You're bleeding through the eyeballs for 25 minutes and then it's done. There's no ways I can do that. So like race pace is relative. I mean, people often talk about you need to do race pace, but it depends what you're training for. Depends, as you said, your conditioning, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I love that advice. And it also reminded me of a comment we had in our YouTube comments a couple of weeks ago about people doing 3.5 hour long runs for a marathon, and the guy's like a 240 odd marathon, and it's actually made me think, and I think we need to do it, is we need to do a video responding to the YouTube comments that we get, because the YouTube comments are, I mean, it's ridiculous, some of the comments that we get in YouTube. So I think that would make quite an entertaining video. We might need a thick skin because, yeah, there are some trolls online, but I don't care too much. And yeah, it'll be interesting. So just so that people can see what people actually say to us, which is quite funny. But yeah, thanks for the question there. Since the next one from Simone. Simone says, I'm looking for running shoes that work well for wide feet. I also have, I don't even know how to pronounce this. Is it Halux Valgus, Lindsey, on my right foot? Do you have any recommendations for brands or models? I already know about Ultra. Are there any others I should look at, or any brands that I should avoid?
Yeah, I'll translate the Latin for you there, Brad, and it's basically a flat foot. Okay, so she's got flat foot. So look, traditionally, New Balance and Asics have had a wider shoe, and Brooks, sorry, and then Nike, Saucony, Adidas have traditionally had narrow shoes, but also within the range, you will find that some shoes are designed slightly differently. So then, if I use Nike as an example, you know, the old Pegasus and Vomero, you look at those two shoes, the Vomero was made for a slightly heavier, bigger person, so it did tend to be slightly wider. So part of it is finding the model in the shoes that you like. And then New Balance in particular is a great brand for people with wider feet, because they simply just make shoes in different widths. So they'll make in males shoes, they have a D, an E, and a 2E, and that's narrow, wide, and very wide. So that's really helpful if you know that you've got a wider foot. And the letters are slightly different for female. Sorry, I should write that down somewhere so I don't keep forgetting it. But that's very helpful, knowing that you can go and try on a New Balance shoe and get the width that works for you. Yeah, and then like I said, Asics has traditionally always been made for the bigger runner anyway, and that's probably why it became so popular in South Africa, because we do have lots of taller, broader athletes that are running. We haven't always had Brooks readily available, which we do now, and so have for the last few years, really. But that's also, as I said, a shoe that's always been known to have a slightly wider toe box and provide more room. So yeah, those are the brands that I'd go and target if you have a wider foot.
Yeah, Lindsey, and I think some good advice when it comes to running shoes too is go to a specialist running shoe store. Don't go to like a normal general like retailer that sells running shoes, because you can get specialized advice, and it's not a excuse the pun with shoes, it's not a one size fits all. Like you mentioned that New Balance, for example, make a wider shoe. Like I've tried New Balance, I don't like running in New Balance, whereas you like New Balance. So it is very much a personal thing, and getting into a specialist store, they can advise you on the different types and brands and what's available in the different models and that sort of thing. So that's probably the best place to start as well. And then Lynn's next question is a video question, and it comes in from Brian.
Hi, Lindsey and Brad. This is Brian Moran reaching you from Ottawa in Canada. I've been with your platform since 2022 and just love it. And I find this particular podcast is a great value add to the weekly coaches calls that you have. So my question today is related to your opinion on a topic that I seem to have stumbled on. Most times whenever I have questions for Coach Perry, you guys eerily read my mind, and it's covered in either the coach's call or your podcast. But today I'm asking you about adaptive muscle shortening. Is this a real thing? What's your opinion on this? Is it possibly a great marketing packaging for the internet, or how do you think about adaptive muscle shortening? If it's real, how should I go about assessing whether it's something that might help my running? Thank you very much.
If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsey and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K, and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now, or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there. Awesome stuff. Linz, before you tell us whether it works or not, like for those of us who don't know, what is it?
So, Brad, it's both real and marketing ploy on the internet, because it's been around for a long, long time, but now it's got a name. And the name just really describes what it is. So it's adaptive, which means it's something that happens over time. Our body adapts to it. It's the muscle that's involved, and the muscles become shorter. And it actually works against performance, increases injury risk, reduces performance. And in a nutshell, it is your muscles getting shorter over time in response to your environment. Okay. So we sit a lot, we drive a lot, and we also, runners, cyclists are probably the two biggest examples. We also often do sports that mean we move through a limited range of motion. So very simply put, it is caused by lifestyle, and it is a shortening in particular of the hip flexors, quads, and hamstrings, okay, depending on your particular reason for it happening. But it happens over time, it happens really slowly, and then the next thing you know, you're suffering from back pain. You can't extend your leg out the back as far as you once could, so you are your performance starts to drop. You have an increase in the risk of hamstring injuries because of the shortening of both your hamstring and of your hip flexor. And I don't want to use the word in extreme cases, but certainly as you get to towards the end of this process, is that you also then potentially have like pelvic tilt and pelvic rotation, which all have a knock-on into your biomechanics, your shortening, or the pressure that goes through your hamstrings and so on.
All right. So, I mean, the short fix of this thing, Linz, is pretty much what we preach: strength training, mobility.
100%. And we're going to answer a question right at the end of the podcast. So you'll definitely get some more advice on what to do about it. But absolutely, it's working on range of motion, doing your dynamic stretches, doing your mobility flows, and staying active. Those are the three ingredients that you need to make sure that you don't suffer from adaptive muscle shortening.
Yeah, I didn't have a name for it until Brian mentioned it, but I'd suffer from it. That is for sure. I just thought it was the hamstring fairy that one night arrives like the tooth fairy as you get older and just shortens your hamstrings. But that's not apparently how it works. Cool. You want
to? We can't blame everything on getting older, Brad. Some things we can do something about and make the aging process much more comfortable.
Is that your way of saying I need to do strength training more?
Yeah, I'm talking to myself too. Don't worry. I'm looking as I said that, I wasn't looking at you on the screen. I was looking at me.
Brilliant. All right, cool. Next question comes in from Andrew.
Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm pushing age 70 and a member of the Faster Beyond 50 group. I'm posting from the state of Missouri, which is in the middle of the United States. On a recent half marathon time trial, I found myself getting quite tight around my upper thighs and lower hips. A couple of times, instead of taking a walk break for 30 to 45 seconds, I stopped, did a slow stretch to my toes, held it for about 10 seconds, then rose slowly. After pausing a few seconds to let the orthostatic hypotension pass, I resumed running. The total time was also around 30 to 45 seconds. Of course, I covered no distance during that time like I would have if I had taken a walk break, but it seemed that I may have gained more benefit from the stretch than a walk. It seemed that I resumed running with less effort needed to keep my pace, less tightness, and perhaps most importantly, an even longer interval before I needed another break. Is there anything to this idea of throwing in a stretch periodically in lieu of a walk break?
Cool. Lindsey, let me tell you, before you answer that question, if that is 70, almost 70 in Missouri, there must be something in the water, because that, Andrew, you look amazing for 70. I think there's a business opportunity there. We need to be bottling spring water from Missouri and selling it, because I think that is the fountain of youth. That is incredible. But on to Andrew's question.
Yeah, so I typically don't like when people stop in the middle of a race. Training runs, no issue. Just because of that, like kind of breaking momentum and not covering any ground. So the thing with walking is that, yes, it's also typically 45 seconds to a minute, but you're still covering ground. So that's why we advocate for walking. But in this instance, I think this is not fatigue. This is tightness that's building up in response to probably a anterior hip tilt. So although he's getting relief from stretching the hamstring, my gut feel is that the hamstrings, in fact, sorry, he's stretching his hamstrings in response to tight hips and quads, not because of tight hamstrings. So actually probably quite the opposite. He's probably, the fact that the releasing of the hamstrings is providing the relief on the front means that he probably has hamstrings that are under pressure, okay, which means he's probably got an anterior hip tilt. And I think in between, so let's just now take a step back and say, how do we prevent that from building up during the run? It's strengthening the hamstrings and stretching the hip flexors so that we can reverse that pelvic tilt, okay? And then in the race itself, yes, because he's definitely getting more relief by actually releasing the tension in the hamstring than walking. And the walking per se isn't producing that easing of tension. In his case, it's probably better for him to do it this way. What I would be concerned about is that in a marathon, it will start to get increasingly difficult to do the hamstring stretch that he's doing. So he may want to keep running until he actually sees a bench or something similar on the route that he can actually do a short hamstring stretch by actually placing his leg up on the bench rather than having to bend down and then stand up, because that dizziness that he was talking about, allowing that to pass, that's going to get worse the longer he runs for. And secondly, just the act of bending down and stretching is going to get harder and harder.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Great question.
So just because my brain's also going now is that there is a possibility here too that the hamstrings are actually just so strong that he is actually in a posterior hip tilt. So I've just told him to go and strengthen the hamstrings and stretch the front end. But if that problem is that he's actually got very tight hamstrings and a posterior hip tilt, which is then pushing stress through the hip flexor and the quads, and that's why the stretching is helping it. So actually, I would just get to a therapist and see which way that hip tilt is so that he can treat the right thing so that that tightness doesn't build up.
All right, cool. Great question. Thank you very much for that, Andrew. And then, Lindsey, question from Heather, and you alluded to this in the previous question from Brian. Heather said, I noted in a talk you did with Stephen Moon that he mentioned 3 mobility exercises that had been particularly helpful for him. Could you explain what these 3 exercises are and how they are performed and how they might be beneficial to runners? If you haven't listened to that episode that we did with Stephen's training for the New York Marathon, an inspiring story, but I'll pop the link to that chat as well. He's pretty much taken those 3 mobility exercises, and in that chat, he said he made it his religion. He's been doing them consistently, and he says it's taken him from as stiff as an ironing board to feeling much looser, to the point that he jokes he might be able to do the splits later this year because of them. He also added a quad stretch himself, which has helped with knee issues, and I've found that as well, that I've had 1 or 2 little knee issues, and a quad stretch has helped. But he says his overall verdict is an absolute game changer, and we'll pop the link to the mobility exercises in the description as well. But Lindsey, can you talk us through a little bit of what the exercises are? Obviously, on a forum like this, it's quite difficult to tell people how to do them. So that's why I'm saying if you want to grab them, the link is in the description. You can also just head over to coachparry.com/mobility if you want to grab them. But talk us through like what they are and why they work so well.
Yeah, and it just so happens that these 3 would be particularly difficult to describe verbally. But it's effectively what we call the world's greatest stretch, Brad. If you think of a praying mantis, you'd probably get an idea of what it looks like. But it's not overly complicated when you watch it. But really, the world's greatest stretch is great because it stretches the hip flexor on the back leg. It stretches the hamstring on the front leg, and it helps you with your rotational mobility. So it's a compound stretch, which means we're stretching more than one thing in one go. And it's just a really amazing way to gently move through the mobility range. Amazing way to get your hips ready for exercise. And then on an ongoing basis, it really just opens up and frees up the hips. And then the other is, I can describe it as a sort of deep squat, where you're using your elbows to push the legs open. And then again, there's a big reach and stretch up to the sky. So again, we now are stretching the glutes, and we are stretching the adductors, both of those things at the same time, as well as working on our rotational mobility. So just another great exercise. And then the final one, much easier to describe. I mean, if you sit on your backside with your feet flat on the floor, knees pointing up, and then at the beginning, you would actually most people would need to then rest on with their arms behind them, putting your weight onto those arms. And then you literally take your knees and try and touch the 2 knees on the ground either side of you. And as you get stronger and as your mobility improves, as your control improves, you want to actually move to a point where you do that exercise without having all your hands on all your weight on your hands, and then you're still able to move your hips. Now that's working. The other 2 exercises are working on your let's call it the frontal plane, the backwards and forwards mobility, and this is actually working about the rotational mobility inside the hip itself. And those are just a really good combination as a warm-up, particularly if you need a little bit of space for the world's greatest stretch, but you certainly don't need as much space as needing to run before a warm-up. So in limited space, just a really cracking way to warm up. And they do exactly what they say they do. They improve the mobility, in particular around your hip joints, and that then frees you up to move much better, to move much faster, to have a greater range of motion, a lower risk of injury. So just a really good thing to involve as a part of your warm-up routine on most days of the week.
Yeah, so coachparry.com/mobility is where you can get that mobility flow. And yeah, as Lindsey said, it is much easier to watch the video, and it's a really easy run through. So go and grab that, coachparry.com/mobility. The link is in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, or in the show notes if you're listening on your favorite podcast player. And Lindsey, while we're talking about links in show notes and podcast players, I am floored. I was looking at the analytics of this channel the other day. Like, only 25% of people who listen to this podcast are actually subscribed to the YouTube channel, which is mad. 1 in 4, which is crazy. So if you are watching this video and you are a regular watcher of this channel, just hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes and other videos that we are putting out. And a bit of housekeeping on this one too. We are shifting the published day of this podcast to a Saturday. It used to come out on a Monday, but from this week coming out on a Saturday. So you might have noticed that this one was 2 days early. And the reason for that is because we've added an extra video onto our main YouTube channel. So you are now getting 3 videos a week as opposed to 2. We're doing Faster Beyond 50 on a Saturday, and then the published schedule on the other 2 is a Monday and a Thursday, which is the Thursday where we normally used to publish it. So there we go. That's exactly what we are doing and why we are doing it. But Lindsey, as always, great to catch up. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for the great questions. If you have one you'd like to submit, all you need to do is click on the link that is in the description and submit it. We do bump the video questions to the top of the queue, so if you want to jump the line, that is the way to do it. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. Thanks for subscribing, because I know you've done it. And we'll chat again next time. Cheers.